So have you found yourself in a financial bind and you're just not quite sure how to get out of it? If so, then I want to talk to you.
You in the past, I'm in the future. You mad?
Thank you all so much for clicking on this video. If you're new here, my name is Kela Trishaan and I make videos on lifestyle, womanhood, mental health, and I'll throw in some vlogs here and there. And if you're returning, thank you so much for coming back and thank you for your support. Okay, so today I wanted to kind of just discuss some basic money tips. I am in no way, shape, or form an expert. I am not a guru, but I have been through some life experiences that have kind of pushed me to learn lessons the hard way. And I want to share some of that information with you if you are going through a tough time and just not quite sure how to pull yourself out of like a financial bind. So if you are interested and could use some of these tips, go on ahead and stay tuned. Okay, so quick little background about me. I did not come from money. I came from what I would consider probably a lower middle class family. And I think a lot of our issue was not necessarily the amount of money being brought in, but just kind of how it was managed. No fault of anybody's. It's one of those situations where if you don't know how to manage and you were never quite taught how to manage your money, then you can't really be faulted. But I do feel that once you know better, you do better. So as an adult, I've had to learn a lot of different lessons just kind of on my own because I didn't know. And I've had to go through things and just kind of have that life experience teach me what not to do moving forward. So I came up with a few tips that will hopefully help you, especially if you're a young adult and somebody who's just kind of getting into the workforce and learning how to pay bills and still have money left over to do other things like recreation and save. So yeah, I just want to put that out there. And again, if this is something that could help you, I definitely want to put the information out. Okay, so my first tip for just kind of getting better with money and seeing like what your financial, portfolio looks like is to always know what you're bringing in versus what is going out. So what I specifically mean is I like to physically write out all of the money that I'm bringing in, and I look at the net because the net is going to be basically what you're bringing in after taxes. In my opinion, that's what matters because I'm not seeing the other money because that's going towards taxes. I need to know how much physical cash I'm going to have in hand to handle my personal affairs. And then you want to know on the flip side of that, like what necessary expenses do you have? So in my opinion, your necessary expenses are going to be your rent or mortgage, because obviously that's where you lay your head, your food, because you need to eat. So kind of figure out how much you spend on food per month. You want to look at your utilities, your water, gas, power, all that good stuff. And if you have a vehicle, your car note, insurance, things like that. So things that I would say the necessary expenses are things that you probably could not live without. Or if you did live without them, it would make things a lot harder. So look at what you are bringing in versus what is going out so you can have an actual like snapshot of where you're at. This will give you a lot of information to create budgets, and I'll get to that in a second. Okay, so my next tip, after you have a clear picture of what you're bringing in versus what is going out, really look at that list and kind of determine if there are areas where you're maybe paying too much, areas where you could kind of like cut cost, or if you have some things that you're saying are necessary that aren't really necessary. So for example, you could be living in, let's say like a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, and it's only you. The rent there is, $2,000, and there are plenty of other places that are going for cheaper. You would just have to kind of downsize. Like, think about your finances. Do you really need that 2-bedroom, 2-bath if it's only you? Like, is there a reason why you have such a big place? Like if you're using it for business purposes, or again, there's like something else going on behind the scenes where you really need that space, that's one thing. But if you're able to kind of cut that $2,000 down to maybe $1,000 and just get yourself a 1-bedroom, 1-bath because it's only you, that might be something that you want to consider. Also, I had this issue where I felt I needed cable. Cable was considered a necessary expense for me for a long time. And if I knew now, if I knew then what I knew now, I would have cut that damn cable off a long time ago. Like with all the streaming services and just all the internet shows you can watch, YouTube, you know, like you really don't need to have a cable service if it's something that you cannot afford. So look at things like that, like look at your subscriptions, look at things like that, because those things can eat away your money. And a lot of times we'll have these subscription services going on in the background and we're not really taking into account that these things are eating up our funds. So you want to just kind of take a look at just everything periodically and see if there are ways that you can cut to make your money work for you. Maybe you might want to find a better insurance company. Maybe you can get a cheaper rate. Ask your insurance company if they have discounts for good driver or good student if you're a student, things like that. I do feel like there's always ways to kind of cut corners, but like nobody's gonna come to you and say, hey, you're paying a little too much in rent. You have to look at your finances and figure out where to cut, especially because I feel like it's easier to cut certain things than it is to find a job. You can obviously find a job, but that takes time, but you can probably more quickly cut some of those like unnecessary things that you're paying for before you find another job making more money. So consider looking at what you're paying for and seeing if there are ways that you can kind of chop away at it so you can keep more of your money. Okay, so the third area to look at is your credit card usage. Now, again, I'm not a guru and I'm not an expert, but I personally don't think that credit cards are bad if they're used properly. A lot of times you do need to have a certain number of credit cards, not a lot, like I would say maybe like a major credit card, you know, like a bank credit card, and I don't know, maybe like one additional card. I think that it's important to have this because a lot of times if you're trying to buy a car, if you're trying to buy a house, they want to see that you have some type of credit history. Unfortunately, not having a credit history can hurt us sometimes when we want to like make like bigger ticket purchases. So look at your credit card usage and see, are you using your credit cards frivolously? Like, are you using them for bullshit? Are you, you know, buying clothes that you know you can't afford? Are you charging expensive meals, going out? Like, look at that. And then also look at, are you using your cards to take care of necessities? Now, I fell into this trap before where I was using my card to pay for not necessarily rent, but using my card to pay for food because I ran out of disposable funds, or using my credit card to pay for some of those frivolous bills I was telling you about, like the cable. So if you find yourself using credit cards to pay for your necessities, you definitely have a cash flow problem because one, you might be paying for something that you could just kind of temporarily cut off until you have the income to pay for it. And then two, you might want to reconsider what type of job you're doing. Maybe the job that you're doing is just simply not bringing in enough money to take care of what you need to be taken care of. So in that instance, you may want to consider getting a side hustle, like a second job. I don't even like to suggest that, but like you got to do what you got to do. And especially if you're in a position to do so, if you're like a little bit younger, you don't have a family, you don't have a lot of obligation, you want to try to get yourself into a good money rhythm before all of those things come about, because it just gets harder as you get older, you know? So if you're seeing where your credit card debt is becoming overwhelming because you are paying for like necessities or again, things that are frivolous, cut that out and figure out if you need to get a better paying job or a side hustle, or if you need to just simply cut out some expenses until you have the money to do that without putting on credit. Okay, so my last tip and like kind of what I want to talk about in this video is decide what you want your life to look like, decide what's important to you, and then create a budget around that. So what I mean specifically, now, budgeting can be tricky because I think that some people look at it as they are removing things from their life. And so it's almost like it could sound daunting, like having to create a budget and then having to cut certain things out that you may want to do until you reach financial goals or indefinitely. However, the way I look at a budget is I try to figure out what's important to me. Like, what is it that I want to include in my monthly expenses? And what areas do I need to cut out to make that happen and make sure that I still have money to cover my bills, money to save, things like that. Example, I finally got my nails done. I'm probably not gonna make this a habit because, now if you follow me on Instagram, then you saw my little rant about how they charged me double when I went to go get my nails done. I was so pissed, but anyway, that's besides the point. I bring this up because I knew that getting my nails done was something that I did not want to live without. I considered it like my little pamper session every couple of weeks. I don't spend a lot of money on everything else, but I'm like, you know what? I want my nails to look good. And so that was something that I included in my budget. I made sure that I had the money set aside to get my nails done bi-weekly, and I knew that I was gonna have to cut out some other things. I had a little bit of a Starbucks addiction for a minute, and so I knew that if I wanted to get my nails done, I can't be going to Starbucks every day because that money could be cutting into other things. So I cut the Starbucks out, and then I just started making coffee at home. Also, like along the lines of food, I knew that buying my lunch every day, which is something that I was doing when I was going into the office, buying my lunch every day was not gonna work because that money was adding up really quickly. So what I needed to do was better plan my groceries and like meal plan and actually bring my food to work, as opposed to going out and buying lunch every day, which could like add up. So I could, again, afford my little nail shop visit every couple of weeks. So think about the things that you want in your life. It could be something frivolous. Like if you do want, and let me not say that, not frivolous, but it could be something simple. So if you do like to have Starbucks every day, maybe you need to cut out in some other area so you can afford that and not skimp on other things. I think the biggest thing about making a budget is you want it to work for you. You don't want to not live your life, and you don't want to, feel like you are lacking. You want it to work for you so you can have money for, important things. You want to have money for a rainy day. You want to have money for unexpected car expenses, stuff like that. And you can't do that if you're living paycheck to paycheck. So for me, creating a budget helps me to not live paycheck to paycheck. You're able to build a savings account, something where you do have money for a rainy day, or even something specific if you want to do that. And you just don't feel as stressed. Money can create a lot of stress for people, and really it's just because we don't know how to use it. All right, you guys, so that is all I have for today. Again, the whole point of this video is just to kind of give you some basic tips on how to handle your money. I think money can sometimes be our enemy if we don't know how to use it. A lot of us have unhealthy relationships with money just because of our upbringing and just simply not knowing, but it doesn't have to be like that. You need to figure out, really at the end of the day, how much money you need to make to live the life that you would like to live, and just create budgets so you don't go too far left, too far right. Believe it or not, even sometimes saving too much can be a problem because you're not allowing yourself to live your life. So be comfortable with spending your money, but just be smart enough to know when you need to pull back, or when you need to save here and spend more there. It's really just kind of a balancing act. And these tips are not one size fits all. You definitely need to tailor it to your life and what's going on, but you need to learn just money management tips earlier rather than later, so you don't end up in a position where you are lacking. So I hope this helped, and if you enjoyed, please go on ahead and give me a thumbs up. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you have not subscribed, please go on ahead and click that subscribe button below, and be sure to turn on your notification bell so you don't miss any of my future uploads. With that being said, you guys have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time.
You in the past, I'm in the future. You mad, they don't salute you. I need a bag, size is super.